Hello and welcome, Pam, once again. Today we will be talking about energy healing from a physical healing, emotional healing perspective, and focusing on the health portion of it. So, if you would like to share with us anything that comes to mind about energy healing related to health, and maybe also share with us some success stories and some insights you have from your healing groups, that would be wonderful.
Oh, yes, that's awesome because there are a lot of success stories, but in a realistic way, it is not um, something that, will just come in and just wipe everything clean. We need to be realistic about the healings, although physical healings do take place. Um, Basically, because the blocks, if they're there long enough, they translate into physical symptoms. Energy healing, by removing the blocks, in turn helps with the physical healing. So I'll give you an example, and it depends on, there are different modalities within that, different sacred geometries that we use, different ways, different, uh, there's different strength and different geometries and how we work with that. Um, so there are some gentler, gentler paths that we can take, which is like if somebody is really, really hurting physically, emotionally, mentally, then instead of starting with digging deep already, we go gently with the gentler treatments to kind of soften that, to remove the top layers before we start digging deep. Because, as I mentioned in some of the other videos, it's bringing to the surface the pain, although you don't remember when it happened, why it happened, how it happened, where it happened, but it goes in and brings that to your conscious memory. Whatever needs to be healed and whatever you're ready for, it'll bring that up. So if it's too painful, first of all, it's going to have a lot of purging happening, which may be uncomfortable, which may be physically, like people would, sometimes they feel nauseous, they kind of, throw up or feel very fatigued or may have other physical symptoms. So we work with that gently and start to see like where the person is in the assessment, in the, conversation prior to the healing. We try to make sure that we are doing it at a pace that the person is ready to handle. And so uh, in the middle of, I think it's the course that I'm doing is a three-part course. The first part, I was like totally, lost. Okay, oh yeah, this is happening. This is happening. A lot of times, I wasn't aware in the sense that, but I could feel the shift a little bit. But in the second part, we went for a deep dive. It was a very deep, distinct conversation. It was very deep influence and shift. And I thought, okay, how much deeper can we go? Oh, in part three, I found out how much deeper we can go, you know? So to give you an example, in the just the second lesson of the third part, which is it, the exercise seemed really simple. And I thought, okay, I can manage that. And I started to do it on my own. And to give you a little background, I mean, I'd had a cyst in my right breast under the arm for many years. Every time I had a mammogram, they'd tell me that, oh, it's a benign cyst. And they were aware that it was a benign cyst. When I started to do this lesson and this exercise, I remember it was the second or third exercise in this third part of the course. I suddenly felt like severe itching under my arm, a severe pain, and the cyst was like 2, 3 times the size that I had felt before, and it was closer to the surface. I went and saw a dermatologist, and she drained the cyst, and she was able to kind of, and it healed. So that exercise brought the cyst to the surface and eliminated it from my body. And that was part of the what we were trying to do is remove all, whatever is sort of the any disease, like anything that doesn't belong in my body, to remove that. I hadn't focused on any particular thing, but I had just generally done that exercise. And another time in another meeting, what happened was I was having pain in my legs, especially left leg. And so my intention at that time was to remove the blockage that was causing the pain. And we did a healing, and it was a group healing. And oh my God, I felt the energy shoot down my leg into my foot and out of my foot. And a few days after that, I had an appointment with my cardiologist. They did an EKG, and I told her about it. I said, this is what happened. She looked, she said, there's no blockage. And before that, they had told me that there is about 30% or 40% blockage in my leg. So these two incidents personally I experienced. I've heard other stories from people who, have received healings and have experienced physical healings. But this is not always the case. People sometimes with cancer have experienced, depending on where they are, what their attitude is, how open they are to receiving. There are a lot of factors, there are a lot of variables in there. So when we talk to a client, we don't basically tell them, oh, yeah, we can heal you. I cannot heal. I'm not the healer. I'm just facilitating the healing. And the person receiving the healing is a major participant. If they believe that, oh, this is not going to happen, or if it is very advanced, or there are other factors that we are not aware of. We are not medical doctors. We work with energy. So, but what else helps is some of the people who've talked about it in the, our shares, they've mentioned how their client who, some of the clients who are very afraid, fearful that they were going to die and that they'll never get better, and their attitude changed. They were more calm. They were able to deal with their illness in a more stable way. They were able to discuss it with the doctor rather than, just living in fear. So if it doesn't cure the illness, it helps with the emotional and the mental state of the patient. So there are different ways it can help you because, I mean, after all, we are not God. Even doctors cannot save you all the time. There are times, then when you have to, uh, and all of us, we know that, you know, whoever's born is going to die. So to have realistic expectations of energy healing, we need to be mindful of how much it can do. A lot of times it can, because energy has intelligence. So sometimes even what the doctors are not able to treat, because the energy works a lot faster, it may work in different ways because it's changing your mental and emotional state, by removing blocks. It's bringing a shift in that field. It in turn helps with the physical healing. So that is the path it takes. That is the process. But again, like I said, there are many variables. There's the physical health, general health, and they will experience some sort of discomfort from the shift taking place. It's like, okay, if you have a pimple and you don't feel the pain because that much because it's like under the skin, but once it surfaces and it's ready to pop, that's when you feel the most pain. So when the blocks are coming to the surface, you will feel more pain. And if you're the type who said, I don't want to deal with it, I'm just going to suppress it, then you put it back where it came out of. But if you say, okay, I know it's just temporary and I have to go through this pain, but at the other end of the spectrum is better situation, and you go through it, you allow yourself to go through it, then, you will be in a better, definitely in a better mental and emotional state, and possibly even better physical state. I find that I have a lot more energy. I was at a point where, I could barely move. I mean, I had a very difficult time just uh, moving with all the aches and pains and stiffness. Uh, but now it's like very different. It's not that I don't get tired, but I don't have that deep fatigue that I used to feel. I feel a lot lighter, and my body is definitely more responsive. I am not taking as much like painkillers as I used to because that's what I needed to function. And even climbing upstairs and all that. And I feel the difference. Like sometimes when I've overdone things, I will be coming up the stairs, and then there are days that I feel. And also, since I'm doing the energy work, I find that sometimes when I'm dealing with another thing that's surfacing, it may be purging. So those few days, then I allow myself the self-care time. I don't push myself. I rest more. I, drink more fluids. And water is very, very essential. You have to drink a lot more water with it because our body is 70% water and energy works through water. So it could dehydrate you. So you have to drink a lot of water to not only allow the energy to flow through and work through, but also to replenish, what's being kind of dried up because of the energy work. And I find that my capacity to hold the energy, to absorb the energy is a lot more. It has grown. So it's a work in progress, you know, from uh, the first GO1 when I started to now. I see the difference in how much my body can hold because before that, when I would do the exercises, even a little exercise would kind of tire me out, make me feel drained. I had to rest. I craved certain foods. Like if I needed to be grounded, I craved more foods like potatoes and things because those are grow in the ground. Other times, it could be sweets or salt or different things. And you allow yourself to go through that. But now the capacity has grown. I feel the energy around me um, to be more vibrant than it was, several months ago.
That's very encouraging. I have a question related
Mhm.
to health, but it's about animals. So, does energy healing work for animals too? Maybe you've got an animal who's sick or, who has some kind of health issue or ailment. Could an energy healing session be done on the animal? And do you have any experience or do you know anyone who has done successful energy healings on animals?
It works a lot better on animals because their minds don't interfere. And yes, I have an example because there was um, one one of the ladies in our class. She had a dog, and he he'd been bitten by another dog, and there was like, wounds like on his eye and stuff. And she was able to do the healing on him. We also did remote healing. We participated. And as a group, then, it works a lot better because so many people doing the healing on that one dog, sending healing. And yeah, and then she posted pictures of before and after. Yes, that worked, definitely.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that it would work better on animals. Like you say, they don't get in the way and they don't have the
mhm,
blocks that we do, and they don't have the resistance
yeah,
and the limiting beliefs that humans do. So it would
uh,
be easier for the energy to flow and to
yes.
work on animals. So that's wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that.
And even some people have talked about doing the healing on their plants. Yeah, yeah, uh, you know. So energy, there's energy in everything, so it works, and it's the only resistant the thing energy is from the humans because they have a brain, they have a mind, and of course they have their beliefs. But with plants and animals, it is really very sort of it flows much better because there is no resistance or beliefs that would kind of not make it work. Even,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, wonderful. Well, I think we're going to leave it there for today, Pam, if that's okay with you. And
yes, I
yeah, I
absolutely.
look forward to our next discussion.
Yes, looking forward to it. And thank you so much, Amira.